Yeah? Good. So welcome. So I thought let's start on a personal note, get to know you a little bit more. Amira, you are a peace activist, a Palestinian peace activist from East Jerusalem. Ibrahim, you are a Palestinian peace activist from Nazareth. Hello, welcome. Could you tell us more about what it means to your identity, being a Palestinian living in East Jerusalem, being a Palestinian living in Nazareth, and also the differences in perspectives that brings? I mean, I've been listening to episode 2, if you could see, but maybe you could share it a little bit with us.
First of all, I think we have to say thank you so much for every single person that is standing, sitting, or contributed, whether they're here or not here, to making this event possible. I have to say I'm a bit nervous. And thank you so much also for moderating this. Like you said, I think people sometimes forget that the Palestinian identity is fragmented. And one could say that it is fragmented by design, by geography, by walls, by different laws and different kind of legislations. And that is no different to the reality and difference, some similarities between Ibrahim and I. I grew up for the majority of my life in East Jerusalem, in Sheikh Jarrah. And I think the major difference or specific thing about Jerusalem is that you can't avoid the ugliness of the situation. That's why a lot of people that come to Jerusalem, you see it. You see the differences. It's like in plain sight and it hits you in your face. In Jerusalem, it's like I feel like the history is so wide I don't know where to begin.
Maybe can you give an example just from your everyday life in which you say, yeah, this is what is so typical about living in East Jerusalem or in Jerusalem, and
that's where I was going. That's where I was going to begin. So why do we say East Jerusalem? Why do we say East and West Jerusalem and not just Jerusalem as a whole? That's because Jerusalem is divided by an imaginary wall, believe it or not, this time. It's an imaginary wall that separates the Palestinian side, which is supposed to be the capital of a Palestinian state, and then the western side, which is supposed to be, this is in a utopic two-state solution, the capital of an Israeli state. And why I say separated by an imaginary wall, it's because internationally, East Jerusalem is recognized as occupied, but through Israeli law, Jerusalem is seen as unified and part of Israel. But then that is what happened to the land. What happened to the people? The people in East Jerusalem, they are residents and not citizens, even though they are recognized to be a part of the Israeli proper territory by Israel. But they're residents, meaning that their residency can be taken away if they leave. They can't move from East Jerusalem. They can't vote for prime minister. They can only vote for municipality, yet they pay full taxes.
And do all of them have Israeli passports, or none of them? I know you have one. How does that work?
I have an Israeli passport, and that's completely by chance. Okay. And that's maybe why I'm sitting here today. And sometimes I have to specify it. What signifies East Jerusalem is the fact that you're living in limbo. You're technically stateless. You don't have a passport of a state that is either actually a state or recognizes you as a full citizen, whether that's the Israeli or whether it's the Jordanian, and travel is always difficult and there's always discrimination. You said that an example from day-to-day life is the language. Even though there's no wall separating East and West Jerusalem, if you go to a restaurant in East Jerusalem, the menu that you get will be in Arabic and English. There will I didn't learn Hebrew growing up until a late age, and I only started actually speaking it when I chose to speak it. Yeah. But usually it's seen as the language of the enemy, and we don't learn it. The way that I like to describe it is that where my school is in Damascus Gate, Bab al-Amud. And when I'm there, even as a kid, even though there's army and police that make me feel terrified and scared, you feel confident because you feel like you're a majority. Whatever happens, I know the place, I know the people, they speak my language, they know who I am, where I come from. And then if you walk for 15 minutes, walk up to, and you cross that imaginary line that we were talking about, that flips within a 15-minute walk from being a majority to becoming a minority, to people that, for the most part, don't speak your language. And if they hear it, they're scared. They don't know anything about your identity, and for the most part, they know wrong things about your identity, and they're threatened by it. And in the best of cases, they don't recognize it to exist. And we don't meet. And the first place you meet the other side is in uniform. You meet the politics before the people. Yeah. You meet the people that are going to tell you what are you going to do, what's going to happen to your life, whether it's at a checkpoint. We're also divided, like that's the imaginary wall, but there's a literal physical wall between us and our families, literal families in the West Bank. Yeah. Like I have an entire family that lives in Ramallah.
Because I know that when you went to go and study in the West Bank, this also did a lot with your identity, but I also want to go, of course, to Ibrahim, because you were talking about language. And what I learned from the podcast is that language also especially on television, was also very important for your identity building. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, again, thank you so much, everyone who's here. Like, we're humbled by the amount of people that are here. Really, it's such a privilege. And it's a privilege that we recognize that we have the ability to fly, we have the ability to be here, we have the ability to speak up. So we take that with us every day we go and every place that we go. So thank you again for being here and giving us the opportunity to share our perspective and our reality and our vision for a better future for both our people. For my reality of the community known in Israel, known as Arab Citizens of Israel. For us, we are Palestinian citizens of Israel or Palestinian Israeli. We are a community that at the end of 1948, the war of 1948 and the establishment of the State of Israel, there were 150,000 people who were within the borders of the newly established state, either stayed in their own towns or were, now we can say, internally displaced. They were displaced to other areas, but there were all other areas within that newly established state, and 150,000 people that are today over 2 million citizens. So every fifth person in Israel is an Arabic-speaking person. And this is the community that I come from, that is Israeli citizens. All our community are Israeli citizens, and but our identity is a challenge. Our identity is a question. As a kid, you are asked that question of who are you, and even more so, what are you? And when you're asked what are you, it's more than often than not, it tends to ask you, are you Israeli or Palestinian, or do you identify Israeli or Palestinian? It's a very political question, asking who do you support.
Do you remember the first time someone asked it to you as a child? Yeah,
I remember it. It was in 7th grade, and it was our history teacher. And because it's important to note that the story of 1948, my grandma was displaced, and they hid in caves in the middle of the war. She lost her father who fought in the war. We don't get to learn these stories inside the Israeli education system. Even though the education system in Israel, it's important to note that it's separate. We learn in Arabic in all Arab schools. The Jewish community lives in studies in all Jewish schools, and there's division there between secular and religion. That's not me to talk about these divisions within the Jewish community's education.
But at the Arab school, you do not learn the Arab history or the Arab version.
But we do not learn our own story of 1948 is not talked about in schools. You're not supposed to talk about it in schools, and it's only if your teacher decides to bring this topic that this topic is discussed. And it's one of the things that needs to change. We can't talk about a future together without recognizing each other's stories and where we come from. And our teacher asked us, he asked every kid in the class, how do you define yourself? And 30 kids, maybe 30 different ways of answering that question. In the sense of the one thing that I could see the division on is, do people say they're Israeli or Palestinian? But the hierarchy changes. You can start by identifying as an Arab or by your religion, You start by saying Christian or Muslim, or you say Arab Christian, Arab Muslim, or Muslim Arab and Christian Arab, and then Israeli or Palestinian, and then you change the three. It's between religion. Everybody agrees we're Arab. Everybody agrees that you're either Muslim or Christian for the majority, or Druze for other communities, not the one that I lived in. And then, are you Israeli or Palestinian? That was like the one thing that the question divided on. And then at the end, the teacher just says, well, this is the essence of the problem, is that we have all these questions. And he's like, I have a spoiler for you. We're all Palestinians, and this is why. And then he started to talk about our history and where, our story and where our people come from, which is if your home, if your personal house is not political and it's not invested politically, you're not going to learn about these things. You have to do it yourself. But we have the vision of how we look at our identity. But I think for the vast majority of our people, we are stuck. It's not a question of either fully Israeli or fully Palestinian. It's a question of a complex identity that kind of moves around between these two polarized terms. We have, I would say, two outliers of people who identify as solely Israeli, don't recognize any Palestinian background, and our community doesn't have conscription. You're not forced to go to the army. Maybe a person like that would choose to go. The other outlier on the other side, somebody who's like fully Palestinian, anti-Israeli, doesn't recognize the state, doesn't recognize its existence. The vast majority of us, we live on the spectrum between these two between these two outliers. And our position is not static. We move and shift on it throughout our lives, throughout our experiences. The first time you meet a Jewish person, whether or not your parents had Israeli friends, Jewish friends or not, were you exposed to Israeli media, which I was at a very early age, watching the kids' channel in Hebrew, Agul Sayledim, for the Israelis in the crowd. Which opened a whole door for me to understand and learn about somebody else's identity, and looking at a different group just as people who speak a different language. And from the language, from the cartoons, from these simple things, Passover is coming up. When I was a kid, there will be a cartoon about Passover, and you get to understand about the religion and about all these things and the symbolism of the holidays and why they stand for, and all these things from a child's innocent eyes. But you get to do that because you learn the language, which is part of the problem that we have internally at the moment, is that I always say that looking at the past and looking at the biggest problems of why previous peace initiatives failed, if we look, for instance, at Oslo, I always say it's now looking at it back, it's ridiculous that we were trying to connect between Tel Aviv and Ramallah when Tel Aviv and Nazareth were not even there. How are we're trying to connect between two people across the border when the people inside the border don't know each other? When you talk about episode 2, which we talk a lot about identity and our reality, we had so many Israelis who told us, I thought I knew Arab citizens. I thought I knew you guys. I thought I knew where you come from. I thought I knew your identity. Now I realize I don't know at all. And there's a problem there. As a kid, during the Oslo period, there was a hope of creating peace. You can smell it in the air. But in the same time, I remember going from my school, and we had kind of a program with a Jewish school at the age of 10. At that time, in our Arabic schools, we learned Hebrew as mandatory. Today, it's from first grade to 12th grade. Back then, it was from second grade. And by 12th grade, and it's 12 years of Hebrew education. You learn the language. That it's not the same case for our Jewish neighbors. Arabic is not mandatory in Jewish schools. It's like for a couple of years it becomes mandatory, and then it becomes an elective, and then, I've seen some of the books, they're very militarized. You learn how to say prime minister and minister of defense. How's that going to help you communicate with somebody on the ground? Or Jib al-Hawiya, give me the ID. These are things for a soldier to learn how to speak. And at the age of 10, they brought my class and a class from the town of Tivon, and they wanted us to talk, to bring in these Arab kids and these Jewish kids, put in the same space and have them talk to each other. And it failed. And the reason why it failed, we went once, they came once, and that's it. There was no connection created from that experience, and it's because something that Amira talks a lot about, is the issue of lacking of understanding of power dynamic. It's the fact that as 10-year-old kids, imagine that, 10-year-old kids who've only been learning Hebrew for 2 years, a year and a half, the first year you only learn the alphabet. The second year you know how to say door and school and class and like very basic terms. A year later they take us to a Jewish school and they say, this is what they tell us. You have to speak in the language of this Israeli kid, and if you fail to create a conversation in his language, you are the reason why there's no connection between you guys. It's on you to speak his language. And if you can't, you're the reason why there's no communication. But if both languages are mandatory, then I'll toss the little bit of Hebrew I know, and he'll toss the little bit of Arabic he knows, and we'll figure it out as kids. But you're putting all the pressure on a 10-year-old Arab child to tell him, you have to speak in the other person's language. And I spoke Hebrew at that time fluently. I made great connections with the kids, but every 2 seconds, somebody from my class, how do you say this word? How do you say, like, they felt very uncomfortable.
When we go now to after October 7th, there was this example also about what language can do and all the animosity around language. When how do you call that, the alarm was going off, and you went into shelter, and maybe you want to share it with us, because you say, when I go into shelter, I will never speak Arabic. And
I wouldn't speak at all
because you wouldn't speak at all, yeah.
Because there's there's accents, like people know where you're from. Like if you sit down, if you don't wear a hijab, if you don't, like even Ibrahim can get profiled. Like if you don't look like a scary Arab Muslim man or woman, then you can sit down in the room and people will talk. And that's when a lot of racism comes from, which we can unpack and understand where it comes from and what happened. But at the end of the day, it's racism. It's discrimination. I would be sitting, like both of us, everybody in a shelter, there's an alarm going on, the building is shaking, and there's rockets on top of our heads, and you can hear them. There was someone that came in with a dog, and for some reason there is this speculation that dogs and Muslims don't mix. I don't know why.
I love dogs. I don't know where that comes from.
I think it's because of something that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said something about dogs that is the speculation. So what did they say? It was like in Hebrew, they said that, oh, thank God you have dogs. The Arabs will never come in here. And this will scare the Arabs in the near neighborhood that was next to us. And that's like the slightest of things. And whenever they hear like something was like they expect it to come from the Palestinians that they call Arabs. Yeah. That is around them, and they don't understand how, because it's not coexistence, it's Palestinian or Arab integration. They don't understand how intertwined our lives are. We see it on a day-to-day basis, but they don't.
And what do you do in such a moment? You just stay quiet, or when you all go out again, do you feel the urge to say something, or?
I mean, you assess the situation, and you understand, like, is my comment going to do something? Is it going to escalate the situation? Do I even have a chance to educate this person? Those are the questions that would come into my mind. And for the most part, in these very extreme situations, the answer is no. You do not have the time, you do not have the space, and it's not like the environment wasn't the environment for you to actually educate someone that, listen, our identity is complex. The situation, that wouldn't be like even explaining what the reasons behind the things are, like why Gaza is the way that it is, and what the situation, the power dynamics, what's happening in East Jerusalem, what's happening in the occupied territories.
I think it's funny that you think exactly like it's not a place to educate them, because I was also thinking you just maybe get angry or mad.
Get angry. I think mostly scared because you feel like you have a bullet on your back, like a target on your back, and it's a target that everybody wants to hit. It's not just like Palestinians call you traitors, and then they have Hamas rockets on top of your head, and then the Israelis also don't like you and don't want you there, and like then the government says what the government says, and they want us to move us and erase us all from here. So you just feel scared, and it's a selfish decision that you make, that maybe if I stay quiet in the next 5 to 10 minutes, maybe that way I will be safe.
Yeah.
The same way that you run to a shelter, your silence also shelters you.
Yeah.
Because I live in that building. If they know, then I would be like, that is the building where the Arab lives. That's the building where the Palestinian lives.
Yeah. So let's then move to the platform where you do speak out and where you educate and where you're also maybe sometimes can be angry. When did you decide to start the podcast? How did it went? Did you call each other? What was the incentive?
So when things first started or erupted,
Because you already knew each other or not?
Yes.
Okay.
So we worked together for less than a year.
Yeah,
at that point, at October 2023, at that time we were both living in the center, and it's like in mixed towns. And I guess the communication was mostly, are you okay? Are you fine? Are you okay? Are you fine? And then the communication started, we need to stick together. Don't speak Arabic. Don't tell people who you are. You never know when fear is going to turn into revenge. Because like walking in the streets, again, if you look like that profile, if you sound like that profile, you see how people look at you up until this day. Mm-hmm. Wherever, even in the most liberal towns, like you see how people look at you, even if you're on the phone. I was carrying like a big bag one day in the train station, and it was so heavy, so I put it down for a second, and I saw people getting ready.
Nervous.
Yeah. During that back and forth, Brahim and I, before October 7th, we're talking about we need Palestinian initiatives. Doesn't have to be political, it can be social, and we were talking like we want to do things, whether it was separate or joint. We said that we need to do things and not wait for people to do things. And unfortunately, the accelerator was the tragic events of October. And that's when we had the conversation. And I remember one of the conversations on the phone, in between checking up on each other, Ibrahim called and was like, Amira, remember when we talked about doing a podcast? And then it skyrocketed from there. And like the urgency and agency was because we say it all the time, is that this is we didn't start our activism a year and a half ago. We've been working in different ways for years, each in different and a little similar fields. So this is literally our careers. So when you're sitting at home and the thing that you're supposed to fix is crumbling and deteriorating in front of your eyes, and all you can do is watch in fear, and then also seeing your friends also in fear, seeing your friends being killed, like all of that, the rubble of Gaza, you feel helpless and hopeless. And this is specifically the thing that it's like a doctor that sees people die and he can't help, or she can't help. It's a similar feeling that this is what I'm giving to the world and now I can't give it. And then we were also silenced by some Israeli peace organizations, where we wanted to show what we wanted. We wanted to say what we wanted to say, and it was altered, it was diluted.
So then were that organizations you used to work together with, and then?
It's multiple because the wound was so fresh. Yeah. Everyone was on their tippy toes. Everyone was walking on eggshells, and no one wanted to make risks. No one wanted to talk about the elephant in the room.
So what did your family and friends said? Like, we're going to start a podcast.
I don't think we negotiated or talked to anybody about it.
I didn't ask for permission.
And then Ibrahim, how? because there's an interesting title of the podcast, or name, I should say, Unapologetic and Third Narrative. Could you elaborate on both?
I guess I'll let Amira, I like how Amira says the unapologetic part, so I'll let her do that.
I've been talking for a while. You want to do
fine.
third narrative first, and then I'll do it.
I already know by heart how you say it, but no. But for us, like we discussed the name, and we discussed what we honestly recorded. The first time we recorded, we did it without a name. Like we just got into the studio. We knew we wanted to speak. Like Amira said, there was that agency and urgency. We've been active for years. For me, it was a sense of, I've been introducing the Israeli public to what it is to be a Palestinian and an Israeli citizen and have this dual reality within your life. And it was a feeling of, I was doing it for 5 years, but everything was done in closed circles, everything in closed rooms. Everything is, I'm just talking to the people with me, this 20, 30 people that I can talk to. And you can see how you can change hearts and minds. But then it was a feeling of, I might never get that chance again. And everything that I've done and spoke about, and I can see that it can resonate and we can create a change, but there might not be Israel and Palestine to talk about in 2 weeks. That was the feeling the first 2 weeks of October. We had no idea if it's going to spiral to an all-out war, if it's going to mean the destruction of everything. And it was a feeling of, we have to speak now. And it's now or never. And for us, we wanted to bring in multiple things together. First of all, when we talk about unapologetic, we wanted to be unapologetic about multiple things. The first thing is about our identity, is our complexity of our identity. We wanted to talk about our Palestinian identity to the Israeli public, to the Jewish world, to the international community, to talk about what it is to be a Palestinian, the differences of reality of different Palestinians, and that Palestinian identity is not an identity of suffering. We are a people and we have different realities, and somehow the world has created a hierarchy of who is a legitimate Palestinian, who's not. And the more suffering you are, the more Palestinian you are. And we wanted to talk about our identity as Palestinians and the fact that we're Israelis. This is our reality. We live as a reality as Israeli citizens. And we wanted to be unapologetic about the fact that we believe in a better future. And we're not going to apologize about the fact that we believe and there can be a better future. And we refuse to apologize about these things. And at the same time, we were looking at the international community right off the first couple of weeks of October, and we can see how there are two narratives started being created in the world. One is, and they're opposing ones. If you're pro-Israeli, you have to be anti-Palestinian. And if you're pro-Palestinian, you have to be anti-Israeli. And really the world's, and I think this also goes into the unapologetic part of the world was telling us how you should be as a Palestinian or as an Israeli. This is the view you should have. This is the box that you should be in. And if you're not in that box, that means you're not part of us. And we recognize and we understand and we believed that it cannot be this is how the world is. There's no way that everybody who's pro-Palestinian is completely anti-Israeli, anti-Jewish, or if you're pro-Israeli, you're anti-Palestinian or anti-Arab or anti-Muslim. There has to be a spectrum in the middle. And we wanted to explore that spectrum and we wanted to showcase that spectrum, and where you can be pro your people. We're not telling people not to support their people, not to stand by them, but not to demonize an entire other peoplehood, not to dehumanize, not to infuel more hate and add to the suffering by demonizing the other. And this is for us where the third narrative is. It's a space where we can have disagreements. We don't have to agree on everything. We get that all the time from our audience. I don't agree with you on a lot of things, but I love listening to you. This is the third narrative, is that we don't have to agree on every single thing. I'm just one individual who has views, and you'll have different views. But if we at least agree on that we need a better reality for the future, this is the space that we can talk about it.
And how is it for you that outside of Palestine and Israel, so many people identify so strongly with one of the two? What does that do to you? And is it strange to you, or
I mean, we understand how passionate the world is about this topic even before October 23, but we appreciate any support. We appreciate the fact that the world cares, but at the same time, we will not let the world tell us what to do. There's a difference between supporting us and telling us what to do.
Can you make that a little bit more concrete?
In a sense of, if you're a Palestinian, this is the way to go. You can't talk about peace as a Palestinian. And if you talk about peace, you're not Palestinian. We're the Palestinians. We choose what future we want. And if you support our people, please do so, but don't dictate to our people what the future they should have, especially when it's a future where you tell us, you need to go to war, essentially. That the only way for freedom for the Palestinians is if you take back the whole land. You're asking us to go to war. And don't do that while you're sitting at the comfort of your couch. Don't tell us that this is the only way that we should be, otherwise we're not legitimate Palestinians. This is unacceptable to us. Same holds truth for Israelis. Can't tell an Israeli, this is the way that you should fix your own problems. This is the way to deal with the question of what happens between you and the Palestinian people. No, take everything and control all the land, or turn Gaza into a parking lot, or I don't know what the terms that were used at the beginning. And we can't have the world dictate to us. It feels like some form of superiority.
Yeah.
Honestly, especially when it comes from, and I'm sorry, especially when it comes from the Western world. It's white people telling us how we should act. It's the world telling us, you brown people in the Middle East, we know how you need to fix your problems. We tell you what to do.
And how do you think, because you say white people, which I understand, but I think, for example, in the Netherlands, it's a lot of people of color, with a Muslim identity, with an Arab identity,
I'll add to that.
Is there a difference to you, with the white activist Palestinian supporters, or the Western with a migrant background, Islamic or Muslim or Arab background supporters? Do you differentiate that?
I think before we divide it that way, I think we need to acknowledge that there is a Palestine that lives outside of Palestine, and there is an Israel that lives inside of people's minds outside of those borders. And I think that's what we need to address, because sometimes many people are fighting and they don't know that they're saying the same things, that they're asking for the same asks, and they want to fulfill the same needs of the people. And I, for one, I think I'm very appreciative. I think we are lucky with the state of the world, with what is happening in Sudan, in Congo, and everywhere across the world. We are lucky that we make headlines. We are lucky that people march for us. We are lucky that people demand change, regardless of the fact if it's influential, if it changes, if it's significant. People care.
You feel that?
Yes, yeah. yes. Like today, we were stopped by Doctors Without Borders, asking us about Gaza, asking us if we have a time to talk about Gaza. I've been stopped in Geneva about that. I've been stopped in London about that. I've never been stopped about something else, and that is a privilege. And I think before we say criticism, before we say that this is what we need and what we want, I think my first message is thank you. That's, I think, the first thing is that we're grateful. And the next thing is, let's see what we can do with it. I think for Muslims, the Palestinian cause is something that is close to every single Muslim's heart. Like that is something like every single Muslim, I feel like, has an opinion on Palestine, has passion about Palestine. Or Arab in general, because we need to acknowledge that there are Christian Arabs as well. And they have passion for it. And then I think for every single Jewish person is the same thing, about what is happening about October 7th, because you feel like it's something specific to you, that is happening. When it comes to separating it to like cultures or backgrounds, I think the entire concept, specifically now, and within the Q&A, everybody, I think like here we're going to use the terminologies that we want to use, and you can ask about it in the Q&A. If anyone is triggered, I think you can either take a step out or ask for someone, but everything is within the realm of respect, okay? I think the concept of oppressed and oppressor can relate to every single person. Even before we go into race, male and female. Every single woman knows what it feels like to enter a room where she's a minority. So when you talk about Israel-Palestine and you see what is going on, whether it's the Israeli side saying that it is combating terrorism, or if it's the Palestinian side that it is fighting genocide and ethnic cleansing, you feel like, or even if it's labeled as black, as brown and white, you feel like you resonate. You feel like, oh, I've been oppressed, I've been silenced, my ethnicity, like you put yourself in that shoes. And that's why people resonate for it. That's why people don't stay silent when it comes to Palestine. And I think what we need to do is direct it. It's like, we appreciate this passion. We need your help. Let me tell you what we do in the land and how you can support that. Let me tell you that when you, for example, treat it as black and white, you might be actually hurting and harming Palestinians and Israelis.
Yeah, because you want to import to us nuance, which we would love, but for some, nuance has become almost a dirty word. Like it's called also like both sidism, you know. Like,
but that's wrong. That's the problem. I feel like there is so much. Like, the people with bad intentions, they're not stupid, they're smart. Like, they understand what is the good and what is the bad, and they like merge them together. So when you do say that it is complicated, when you start saying both sides, like, yes, there is that community that is there, that fights for both people, but at the same time, there is that movement that uses that both sidism, that uses that neutrality, that, oh, it's complicated, in order to maintain the power dynamic, and in order to maintain what is happening. So I think it is fine to say that there are things that are complicated, but there are things that are not. Like oppression, like occupation, like genocide, like ethnic cleansing, like terror attacks, all of these things. Like, when you say harming an innocent child is wrong, regardless of the background, regardless who is hurting that child, that is wrong. I feel like that is something that I think everybody in the room can say is not complicated. But then the identities of the people living between the river and the sea, that even if we say that that is complicated, that doesn't mean that it is okay for that child to die and be killed and be murdered. I guess that's what the international community gets wrong, is as soon as they hear that it is complicated, that they feel like what we're saying is that it is okay for you to suffer. That's what we're trying to brush under the rug.
And how do you make sure that with everything you say, people are not, how do you say that? Monopolizing on you, on what you're saying, you know, or put them in your camp, or put them, because what I hear from a lot of people that try to look at the complexities but be also outspoken, they feel very lonely, and they're also a bit scared, you know, and who they can trust, who they can work with. Are they utilized for something? How do you do that?
It's being tokenized, you mean?
Yeah, I think that's
It's inevitable that somebody will try to tokenize you and tokenize a statement that you say for their interest, either legitimizing or delegitimizing something. Unfortunately, that does happen, but it doesn't mean that we should let that prevent us from speaking up and saying what we believe in. Tokenization happens, and it's unfortunately also damaging, because we see it. We've talked about it in the past, where for instance, some of our people in Gaza would want to speak up, but they're afraid of being tokenized by the pro-Israeli camp that, especially the diaspora world, where it's like, hey, you see, these are the Gazans who say that means we have to destroy Hamas. But these people are saying we don't want Hamas, but we don't want to be killed. And if you're trying to bombard all of Gaza, you're going to kill me. So, but they're not going to mention that. They're only going to say, see, they're anti-Hamas. We need to, that's our legitimacy to go in and to take all over Gaza. We're helping these people. And, and then it washes the real nuance that the people actually themselves are saying. So it's a challenge, but it doesn't prevent us from continuing to speak. Somebody's going to try to do it, but it's part of the reality of today's world, unfortunately.
Like, for example, did you have to think about speaking here at the Jewish Museum in Amsterdam? Yeah.
Of course.
Everywhere.
Yeah. And what then? How do you make your choices?
We discuss it first. And I know we said that there are things that you can disagree, but I agree on. Ibrahim and I are the same thing. Like we have heated discussions. We have it's not that we agree on every single thing. The contrary. But we believe in the needs of the people. And I think that's what we discuss usually, is that if us being here, what is it going to benefit us as an initiative that also works in the ground? What will it help the people that we're trying to help as well, our people? Will it actually give change? Like the fact that the fact that this room is filled right now says something. The fact that this, even though this is our first live recording, it is our fifth live event internationally. And we've heard so much change stories in people's families, in people's jobs, in people's perspective and outlook on the situation and on what's happening. And we see that there is benefits. Even though if you ask me, my number one priority is to help Palestinians in the ground, is to help families in Gaza, is to help people in the occupied West Bank. That is my number one priority, because how can you not? How can you not? When it's your grandma, when it's your best friend, when it's that's where you feel like your heart is. But I feel like every single place, there is a role to play. Every single person here has a role to play. And they can either take that role to make the situation worse for us and for you, or they can make it better. And that's why we decide to come here. And I think if you ask Kiki and Dana and everybody, we've met multiple times on Zoom. We've had discussions, we've had conversations, and it's not like we're hit up yalla, come to Amsterdam, and we're like, we'll see you there. It's not like that. And we try to do our research, but everything is here, as much as the media filters things that we don't know. Politics are different in every single country, because something might be good for us that is here, but it might not be good for the people that are here. So there's so many things putting into consideration, and we try to make the best decisions, and we will make mistakes. I'm
happy you took the risks and that you're here. I have 100 more questions, but I really would like to give you a chance now to ask your questions. Okay. And I know, I think this has been said many times to you before, but we asked Ibrahim and Amira for their thoughts and opinions, and we ask you for your questions. So, yeah? So I hope that everyone, and I do not give away the mic. So, yeah. Hi. Yeah, I hold, yes.
Yeah, hello, I'm Mohammed. I actually come from Gaza. I've been invited before as a speaker here. And you had it over semantics actually, and how you should people maybe search in mistakes in your speech and then try to dwell on the semantics, and it's driving me crazy, especially when I need to talk in front of a public. And I noticed, I was careful, to check your choice of words, and I noticed that you said Jewish schools and Israelis alternatively, and I'm wondering, any smart person would actually know not to generalize their understanding of what you say, because it's common sense about eloquence in any speech. In Arabic we call that تقدير المحذوف, so أخطر خلاطة implicit. So how do you deal with that? And by the way, I hate dogs. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure, yeah. First of all, proof. We don't hate dogs, guys. So that's great. And thank you so much for being here. Like, it's honestly an honor and a privilege to have you with us, Habibi. Thank you so much. And I hope the family is safe and our thoughts, our prayers with you always. When you talk about the terminology, so when I'm talking inside Israel, I refer to the Arab population and Jewish population, not rather than Israeli and Palestinian, because we're Israeli citizens, so it creates a more confusion. So when I'm talking inside of Israeli population, I talk about Arabs and Jews, but when we're talking about the politics, we talk about Israelis and Palestinians. So I think that's the difference I try to make. So when I say Jewish schools instead of Israeli schools, because we're technically under the Israeli education system. So then it becomes even more confusing to understand what I'm saying when we do it. So I try to use the terms that will try to make it clear, but it's always still a challenge for people who are not from the land to grasp what we're trying to, convey. But we still try to use the terms that are clear enough so people can understand the different parts of the identity that we talk about. But yeah, it's everything is a challenge with terminology, with the words that you use. People hang on the words that you use and try to spew it in a different way. If you said Arab, you don't recognize that it's Palestinian. No, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm just talking about an Arab community and a Jewish community within the context, within the state. But these are Palestinian Israeli citizens and Jewish Israeli citizens. So these are some of the challenges that we face all the time with terminology. I mean, if you ask me, what are the biggest things that needs to happen in order to create a change? Like I said, we're trying to connect Ramallah and Tel Aviv before Tel Aviv and Nazareth, and we don't learn about Nakba because there is no recognition of Palestinian identity inside Israel. I have a lot of people who tell me from my community, that's the one thing I'm missing is recognition. Just to be recognized for my identity. My identity is a complex one. Why can't the state accept me for who I am? When at the same time, the state has a complex identity. The whole world, almost, the majority of the world has gone away to separate church and state or synagogue and state. While in Israel, it's the complete opposite. And it's a Jewish democracy. I'm not Jewish. Where do I fit in? How does all these elements fit together? And I need to accept it. So why can't you accept me for my identity? That I have also a peoplehood. And I always say it also particularly to the Jewish community in the diaspora. If you can be Jewish and Dutch, for instance, but also very strongly connected to Israel, and you have connection to the state, how is it that you cannot grasp that I'm an Israeli citizen, I have my Jewish friends and I want the state where I live in to be in a better place, but I'm also part of the Palestinian people and care about my own people who are not in a different continent. They're literally 40 minutes drive. And that includes cousins and family members. And I could have been born there. My grandma was born there. My grandma was born in Bethlehem. And then she was raised in Ramallah. If we would have been there today, I'm a Palestinian in the West Bank. And that's something that the Israeli public, it's something that we're trying to bring into the Israeli public to grasp peoplehood in a way that will be inclusive. So it's part of our challenge terminology, and it includes a challenge inside the state. This one of my biggest challenges and activism work that I do is to bring in what it is Palestinian peoplehood and identity to the Israeli public, because recognition is going to be the first step for us to move to a better reality. Without recognizing each other for who we truly are, we can't move forward. It can't be in a way that I become you in order to you accept me. Accept me for who I am, and I'll accept you for who you are. And I hope that answers the question. And if you want to add anything.
Summed it up?
I hope that answers that.
Well, there are a lot of questions. That's a very good thing. Can someone help me with another mic? That would be great. Then someone goes to over there, and then I go. Yeah, if you go over there, then I'll go here. Yeah.
Hi.
No. Is the mic on? I see. Look at it.
Yeah. We can repeat your questions. Say it.
wanted to ask about your choice to have this podcast in English primarily, addressing the disaster topic, given also primarily the Jewish diaspora topic. I can't imagine that, again, some of my, and I've friends, some of your efforts find that sound radical enough. You're not talking about genocide, you're not talking about the apartheid language. I wanted to ask about the degree to which you feel that you have to self-censor yourself in order to keep your message palatable to that audience, and about your shunting from trying to speak to the Israeli public and the importance of the diaspora in trying to initiate change.
Okay, first, before you answer, this was also a very uncomfortable mic situation, but also really try to make it compact questions, because then otherwise, did you understood the question?
I can't repeat it. I promise to repeat it, but...
So please try to have like a little bit shorter, question. But do you have an answer? Did you grasp what?
Okay,
it was about the language of
yes.
the podcast, why it's in English, and if you censor yourself in a way.
Okay, so in the beginning, our first episode was aired on the 29th of October, 2023. Understatement, it was a difficult time. And I don't know, I think it was a mixture of fear, a mixture of hurt, a mixture of respect to both our friends, family, and both Israelis and Palestinians. I think we've also grown a lot and see things. I think we thought that the most sensible thing that we can do is, instead of explaining things to the people, that Palestinians and Israelis that are going through it right now, we need to address basically kind of like a flag of help to the international community, because we were literally terrified, not knowing what was going to happen, but and in a literal war zone. And what we could do, what we could say, I would say that in the beginning, I honestly didn't know what I was allowed to say. And when it comes to the state of Israel, people were being arrested left and right. People I didn't know what I was allowed and not allowed to say. So it was also safer, but also at the same time, it was pragmatic for us to say that to go to the more privileged people around the world that don't live in a war zone, that care so much about what happens to us, that need us in order to have that change. So we were we're going to direct it towards you. And one of the messages, I guess, was that kind of we're not so different, or that you have a partner, you're not alone. Also to humanize ourselves in order for people to listen to us, because if you're going to go and say your opinion straight up without saying this is what we do, this is where we come from, this is what we believe, people are not going to listen. The second part of your question, it's like a very, very thin line. Because both communities, we speak to them joint and separate, and both of them want, even if they want to hear the same thing, they don't want to hear it in the same way. They want to hear it in different ways. They want to hear it in a way that's, oh, nice, that doesn't trigger me, that sounds nice to me. I sit down, I listen to you now. And that's difficult, because there's first and foremost your truth, which your truth can change. And there's what's happening to your friends and family on the ground, and then what the others are willing and okay to listen, and then what is it going to look like to others, like you said. So you choose your battles. You choose your battles, and you need to choose your target audience. And sometimes your strategy changes. In the beginning, I think we were really targeting the international community, and separately, I think we have our different kind of strategies. Because when we realized, even maybe unconsciously, we realized that the majority of the audience was Jewish, we were you can't preach to the choir. You can't just talk to one side. You need the other side. We as much as we talk and say, we're not all the Palestinians from the river to the sea. We're not. People don't, even if we don't think the same, there are like just in Ibrahim's classroom, 30 different identities. And there's more and more and more. So we need to bring them in, which means we also need to be inclusive of that terminology. We need to be inclusive of that radicalism that they want to see and hear. And we need to hold space for it. And if that means that other people are going to feel uncomfortable, that is okay. You just need to tell them that you're going to be uncomfortable. And believe it or not, some people, they tolerate it. Just if you give them that warning, is that this is still the same space. There's room for other people, the same way that there's room on the land. And if we're going to practice to make that space, I don't want to use the word comfortable, like if we want to make that space inclusive, then that's exactly what we need to embody. And we're still we're not perfect. I'm not saying that wallah we have the blueprint. We don't. We're still in trial and error. Our first season was 30 episodes and a bonus episode. I see that as our pilot. All of it. I see it as a pilot because it came from a sense of we need to do it. There was no plan, but it worked because people needed it. People were thirsty for hope and thirsty for nuance, and we gave it. And now we're trying to direct it towards the most impact that we can. Hope that answers the question.
I think there are so many more questions. So let's, yeah.
Hi, I'm Daphne. I'm Jewish. I'm also a little bit pro-Israel. I use the words you used, and I don't want to be that person that is pro-Israel. I want to be in the middle. So I want to have understanding for both situations. That's the reason why I'm here. You called it, right, the third narrative, which really speaks to me. And I saw your shirt, Ibrahim, where you say, we all deserve better, right? Yes, we all deserve better. So I'm very curious now. I come to my question. I'm very curious. What are you doing to facilitate that third narrative? What is your goal and what is your message to the people?
I mean, as we mentioned, first of all, welcome to the third narrative. I guess our message to the people is, first of all, is there needs to be space for conversation, for dialogue. We can't continue in the reality that we've had for the last 80 plus years. And there needs to be something different. And the goal is to find solutions. We don't have the magic solution, but we cannot talk about solutions without talking. We can't reach a solution without dialogue, without unpicking the problems of everybody, without discussing and understanding from my Jewish friends and Israeli friends, what are the things that are urgent to them. In order to reach solutions, we need to address the word that Amira used is the needs, the urgent needs of both Palestinians and Israelis. And what are the things that need to be done in order to address those needs? And if those needs are met, we will get to a solution. And believe it or not, we talk about it all the time, that me and Amira sometimes bicker about what kind of a solution is the right one for our land. But then we took a second back and we said, it doesn't matter at the end of the day which solution, if a solution is adopted by both Palestinians and Israelis and it addresses the needs of Palestinians and Israelis, then who am I to say, yeah, I don't like that solution so much. I prefer a different one. But it's addressing the needs. So our goal is to unpack these things, to discuss these things, and to bring in forth also some hope. And because there is no hope. Our friend Maoz Inon always says Maoz lost his parents on October 7, and literally 2 days later, he came out and spoke to the Israeli media and spoke against the war and said, I'll accept that any Palestinian child is killed in my parents' name. And he's a superhuman. We're normal people. He's a superhuman, honestly. And his best friend, Aziz Abu Sara, lost his brother in the second Intifada, who was killed by an Israeli soldier. And they're best friends and talking about peace. These people are superhumans. And they talk about how we need to create hope, because hope does not exist. We're not supposed to be looking for hope. We need to be forging hope. We need to be creating hope. We need to create a reality where, looking back to my own childhood, we could smell peace in the air in the 1990s. People could smell it. People go to the polls now and bicker about how the polls are so horrible. And, oh, look at the poll in the West Bank. Look at the poll in Gaza. Well, look at the polls in the 90s. There were more Palestinians in the 90s that believed in two-state solution than Israelis. And that's a fact. The only way Israeli public reached 2/3 of the public to one two-state solution at that time is because Arab citizens were there, Palestinian Israelis. For us, it was a vast majority of 80% who believed in it. So it increased the number of people who believed in two-state solution. And we need to bring, and people lived with that hope, and really there was a euphoria in the air. Because when you give people hope, they will take it. The problem is we have not given people hope ever since. The word peace does not exist in the Israeli and Palestinian rhetoric anymore. The word peace has become a taboo. And we want to revive that. And this is, for me at least, this is part of our goal, is to revive these things, is to create dialogue, to create discourse, addressing the needs, and forge hope for a better future. Maybe we'll not be the ones who will create the solution, but we're putting a stone in.
I'll answer it in I'll add to that. I guess
I also disagree sometimes.
Our activism is kind of split into two. There's the digital activism, and then there's the on-the-ground activism. So the digital activism is basically the podcast and our social media. So what we do with the podcast is that we give a platform, and this is specifically what season 2 is going to be about, which we're fundraising for season 2. If anyone wants to make a donation, you know the email. What we want to do is, and what we have been doing with the podcast, is to platform people, because how NGOs work is that, first of all NGOs that are fighting for the same goal also fight for the same money in order to achieve that goal. So it creates enemies within the same field. So what we're trying to do, and usually that money is never used for PR. Never used for PR. So what we're trying to do is to show people that not only are we working for it, but there's so many others that are working for it in many different ways, and they're all necessary, whether they're Palestinian or they're Israeli, or they're working together. So that's one. And on our social media, sometimes we even volunteer to make videos for organizations. We collaborate with organizations. We speak at fundraisers for them to I think that's the least that we can do in order for the people, the organizations that aren't a year and a half old, or initiative. We're not even an organization. We're an initiative that is a year and a half old. Initiatives that are years, tens of years old, that people don't even know exist, that do important work on the ground, for them to have, I hate to say this, but a better following, for people to know that, this is happening, not to kind of show you that, yes, we're seeing all the horrible, bloody headlines, but there are people, and it's not that it is there are people that believe in working together, and there are people that believe, even if they work separately, in a joint, just future. And then the work on the ground is we hit the streets. Protests, we volunteer in the occupied territories, in Israel proper, wherever we can be and our presence will benefit, we go. If that looks as volunteering, if that looks as chanting, if that looks as bringing people to demonstrations, we try to do that as much as we can. And then there's the private things that we do. I think we're kind of assigned ourselves as kind of advocates, because when I speak to Israeli friends, I'm always taking the Palestinian side, and I'm always that Palestinian that's talking about the Palestinians. When I'm talking to the Palestinian side, I'm let's focus on the future. What can we do? How can we take that anger and do it like that? And I can't have any other conversation right now. I wish I can talk about normal things. I really can't. There's also I think community organizing And even though we come here, we devote a month. This is the longest time I've ever like traveled. This is my first stop only. I'm going to be traveling for a month. And then I say that after I finish this month, the rest of my time is going to be volunteering in, like, this is what we do for a living, to try and organize people in order for them to start making change, kind of like a domino effect or a ripple effect.
I mean,
And we do things.
because I feel bad because there were a lot of people with questions.
Thank them for the answer, because I think the combined answer was very satisfactory.
Okay,
I will say that also we've together spoken just in 2024. We've gone to different countries and spoke at 4 different parliaments as well, talking about the role of each government, what they can do. So we were in the Italian parliament, the German, the French, and the British, and also even met with the British Prime Minister. And so we're going in different directions, and like Amira said, we each have a role to play and different roles to play. So we try to do all of these different things and to talk to as well as governments as well as the people on the ground.
I understand now why your podcasts are an hour and a half.
Exactly.
And I wish you so much luck with the 40 minutes coming ahead. Yeah.
It's the most challenging part of the night is how to do the episode in 40 minutes. I don't even know how we're going to do that.
I'll keep it short then. First of all, thank you for sharing your stories. And I do think you're superhumans. But my question is, if I'm a tiny person in a tiny country like the Netherlands, what can I do here to contribute to the ripple of change?
Yes, find other tiny people like you, and then you can create a big impact. That's the short answer. The long answer is first talk to. Start small. Start small. Like even when I talk to anti-occupation activists in the West Bank, they tell you that you look for a tiny thing that you can do, and you do it over and over and over and over again until you see change. And then you bring more people, and you bring more people, and then you distribute. And you might see yourself as just one individual, but you can do so much. Organize, find like-minded people and organize, and always like have a set of values for yourself. Always go back to the values. We do the same thing. We go back, like we all deserve better. Dialogue over debate. The people come first. We disagree on the past and the present, but we can't disagree on the future. And we have these like set of values that whenever we like are lost, we go back to. So I think you should do the same. Even small events in your living room, and they'll grow.
I heard there was a question there. Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you. I have a question that is partly hopeful and partly very terrifying. We're watching every day. We're watching horrible images and reading terrible atrocities happening in Gaza. And at a certain point, it's going to stop. What's going to cause, I don't know, but it won't. And the Trump and the Bibi fantasy isn't going to happen. And people have to live together in the same land. The videos and the images of the atrocities won't disappear. How will not only Gazans, but people in general, how will they be able to reconcile their rage and the anger of people done to each other? And how won't that overpower them in a way that, how will they be able to live? Like the anger isn't going to go away, but they will have to learn to live with each other.
I will just say that, thinking that the rage will not go away, I think is also a little bit unfair to us. How angry are you at Germany at the moment, if you're in the Netherlands? The Europe itself has gone to 2 world wars, the bloodiest and the most horrific wars in humanity's history, and look at the situation today. Where Europe, you can move from a country to a country, you can work in different countries. Yeah, well, there's there definitely will be discrimination. There definitely will be racism. There definitely will be, kind of like views about the other and things that you don't know, and that's part of human nature. But nobody's killing each other on a daily basis in Western Europe, where it was the heart of killing for so long. And if the Europeans are able to do so, with all due respect, you are not better than we are. With all due respect. If in Northern Ireland, the situation is still till today is not perfect. There is no true solution in Northern Ireland, but they're not killing each other on a daily basis. There is still division. There are still things to heal the wounds in Northern Ireland. We've gone to Northern Ireland just recently. Amira, I've gone multiple times. She became an expert on Northern Ireland, honestly. And she's going again soon. And the situation there is not perfect. They haven't solved the conflict, but they solved the war itself. They stopped the killing. They stopped the everyday walking out afraid being bombarded. If they're able to do so, why can't we? Are we less than? I don't think so, honestly.
Okay.
And if you suppress it, it'll be worse. If you try to hide it, it'll be worse. If you put it all that this is what happened and you leave room for it, like in Northern Ireland, there's like museums. The Free Dairy Museum, there's everyone can say whatever they want to say. And they know that those museums are not only what happened in their narratives, but they're like kind of like a writing on the wall that this is what it was and this is what you're preventing from happening again. I think it's their testimony to themselves that will never happen to us again.
There was a question here.
Hi, I'm Tamara, Dutch Israeli. I've been living in Israel for the past 8 years in the Negev and was there on October 7, which was pretty terrifying, and we lost everything. Came back here since, and what really struck me is that since being back in the Netherlands, I felt extremely unsafe. And hearing you guys talk, I just got really emotional when you were talking, about the recognition and that target you have on your back, the way you feel all the time. And I just really wanted to say it's so incredibly important to me to experience, I feel you, me, Israeli Palestinians understand each other so much better than so many people out there. So first of all, thank you so much for just sharing that again, means the world to me. And I'm very curious about your personal experience. You were talking a lot about fear. You were saying when I started the podcast, I wasn't sure what I was allowed to say. How did everything you've been doing now change that for you? Did you get more scared, or do you feel like that's subdued? You feel safer by sharing your story and speaking out?
Thank
you. No. I'm terrified. I'm really scared. I'm really traumatized. We were talking about this before we came to the museum. We were talking about chaos and calmness, and Ibrahim was like, I'm so relaxed here, this is great. And I'm like, I'm waiting for something to happen. I am waiting for something, because I know people usually are surprised by this, but I'm 25 years old. I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be doing this right now. I'm so burnt out. I'm so tired. But this is what we need to do. This is what we have to do. But I find myself getting so triggered, so angry, so sad, and so numb all at the same time. It's a very weird combination and mixture of feelings. I think that we all need so much therapy. For real, I really, if with where I am, with the support that I have, with the work that keeps me alive, I don't understand how people can go and work in corporate or work in a normal job where they check in 9 to 5 and then leave and go back home. I think that would drive me more crazy. Like I used to work in healthcare. If I was in healthcare now, I would go insane. I don't think I have an answer for you, but it's not nice.
Well, I recognize all of this. Thank you. Well, I'm really sorry, but I have to close things off because we having a break, and then we also get all the mics back. Maybe you can also they ask people send their questions right to the podcasts and to the social media platform. And they're here, yeah. So maybe when they're eating a sandwich, you can still ask the question. I really want to thank you. I already told you just back, but just on a personal note, in my own brothers and sisters app group, sometimes the debate gets very heated about Israel-Palestine in a loving way, but very heated. But then when I sent the podcast from the third narrative, we all agreed that these were the voices that you were expressing what I think we all felt, and we thought so differently. So on a very personal note, thank you for that. Thank you for your attention, and I hope we will all not go home immediately, but after the podcast, we go home and think about what small people can do. Thank you very much.